Welcome to episode 149 of the Driller Newscast, your update on all things impacting the drilling, the construction, the geothermal, and water industry. I'm your host, Brock Yordy, and let's jump right into it. June is National Safety Month. This week is engagement with your employees, and I want you to think about that because that's a big piece of our operations. And as we've gone from legacy family businesses to non-traditional employees, as we've seen the age gap continue, how are you engaging from a safety level, from a personal level, from a progression of the business level? So let's start with from a safety level. We see all kinds of things right now out there about new hire orientation and PPE and how we operate on a job site. That's fantastic, but it's not like our industry's hiring as much as we want to be hiring right now. So if we're going to have good employee engagement on safety, we need to look at our veteran employees that we have right now. How are we operating? Because I'll tell you what, Driller universe out there, I'm watching on Facebook and on LinkedIn and on social media, and we're not operating safely. We have high profile projects happening in Manhattan that nobody has hard hats or gloves on, that we're trying to talk about limited access and equal acceptance and adoption of geothermal. I'm seeing water well projects where, stop being a sissy. That hard hat protects our most important safety device. Our gloves, do you realize the cost of an amputation or a smashed hand? Sure, it starts out at 30 grand as a direct cost. We can almost double that in indirect cost and lost time, not to mention what your workman's comp and everything else is going to increase. We have to operate smartly. So yes, PPE is important, but it's important for us to all be operating all the time. It's like putting on our uniform when we played sports with our pads and our helmets. We need to have our game face on when we step out and we start those jobs. Beyond that, what are our expectations for the day as we see extreme weather, as we see all of these pieces occurring across the country that are impacting our operations, from distractions of the news to all sorts of new viruses and things rolling out. Those are distractions. Everybody on the job site needs to have the ability to have a stop work authority, no matter what. So I want you to engage with your employees this week and next week and the following week and every week for the rest of the year and beyond. Think about it. As we grow, stakes get higher, and we separate ourselves to help grow the business. We've stepped off the platform. We've stepped away. We trust them. But it's still worth going back and asking, what's going on? It's Father's Day this week. I want you to think about how Dad and Grandpa and your family took care of you on the site. We're all family. Let's think of this like the Fast and the Furious of drilling, right? It's all about family. It's all about staying safe. That's about employee engagement. This week's feature is with Paul Firth of the Ontario Geothermal Drilling Association. He is the board chair for the conference that just completed a few weeks ago. And we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about what's going on in the Ontario Geothermal Association. We're going to talk about some embodied carbon. We're going to talk about growing and being better together because let's face it, United States and Canada and Mexico, we are all North America and we are all brothers and sisters and neighbors and family. And we have to operate smart and increase our abilities of having a more climate stable future. Let's jump into this great discussion with Paul Firth. For this week's feature, going north of the 48, and we have a great industry friend, advocate, champion for geothermal, Paul Firth,
And I'm really excited to have this discussion because we do so much work as North America opposed to, Canada and the United States. Let's face it, we are brothers and sisters and family, and we have family across the border and they have family down here. And we are very important to be united together. And I'm so excited to have them on. Paul, how are you doing?
I am doing fantastic, Brock. I am excited to be here. I think I told you this. So this is my first ever podcast. So I know you're going to turn me into a celebrity. So I'm looking forward to it, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get you like I'm probably Q or R status celebrity, right? Like we got a lot
Exactly.
more jumps to make it to where we can even be considered like hanging out with one of the Baldwins.
Don't worry. I'll get you out with the Baldwins. I'll help you out with that one, buddy. Don't worry.
So you just wrapped the Ontario Geothermal Association's 2025 conference.
I did.
And how did it go?
So it was the largest conference in our history. We had 500 people registered. We did a 2-day conference. The first day was focused on real estate and public sector, so education, healthcare, and municipalities. And the second day content was driven towards contractors. When I took over the conference last year, I decided to chair it. I had a couple of goals. One was I wanted to double attendees, triple revenue, but I wanted to do things differently. Yeah, there's always been a conference every year, and it's always been, kind of 100, 120 guys going in there, sitting around in a circle and kumbaya, geothermal, rah, 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 which is great. But I like to work with not the traditional geothermal people, right? I want to bring in different content. We don't need a room full of geothermal people saying rah rah geothermal, and that's really what I wanted to do. And so last year I brought in things like, what impact is embodied carbon going to have on geothermal, and what are some of the policies that are changing, and what can we do, and some really cool case studies. And when you looked at the room last year, going back to 2024, we took it from 120 to 304, but the majority of that room was developers and municipalities. And at the end of the day, you need to get those people on board to be able to change things, right? So that's really been a lot of my focus, is looking at the different audiences that can become a part of this, getting people engaged that aren't the traditional guys. Hey, all the drillers, they all know who we are. All the heat pump guys, they all know who we are. All the contractors, they know who we are. But we need to get the people that aren't doing it involved in this, right? Same thing happened this year. When you look at the demographic of the audience, it was a lot of developers. It was a lot of municipalities, a lot of new faces. My phone, ever since this thing ended, it's just been lit up. I've got people that came in that were even on panels, and they kind of approached me after, and they're like, holy crap, Paul, we didn't know this was happening as fast as it is, and how much opportunity there's. What can we do to help? What can we do to help find even funding? I've got people that want to help find funding to do education campaigns and everything. So I'm honestly, was the conference perfect? No, it never is. But if you attended it, you thought it was perfect. My job is to have the attendee look at it and think puppy dogs and rainbows, and I deal with the crap. That's how it goes, and that's how it went. And we're really, really happy with the end result of it.
That's fantastic. It is absolutely like a wedding, putting one of these conferences on. And the next thing you know, you're anticipating, and then
Yeah.
you have a couple adult beverages and it's over. And you're like, I don't remember seeing everybody or all that was supposed to happen, but people are smiling and talking about 2026.
You got it, and we'll see 2026. It just keeps getting bigger and better. Now, as you probably are aware, our board and everything we do is voluntary. So I'm not going to say I'm going to chair it next year. I'll say I'm definitely going to be involved, but I put in probably 30 hours a week for 3 months leading up to this. So it was a big hit. I'm still recovering from that, from the conference, but I know it'll be bigger and better next year, as always.
Yeah, it's wild. We'll give a shout out to Christine Hoffer at the New York Geo. Uh, associate organization, NYGO, always doing great stuff. But she did a April 2024 Albany, a October 24 Brooklyn, and then a April 2025 Saratoga Springs. And I bet she's gonna at one point go, "Well, I don't remember 24 in the beginning of 25," because she's also amazing at putting these things on, and we should all strive to.
So I'll give the same show to Christine Hopper. So I was at Brooklyn. I love Christine, and if she's watching or listening, go Bills, go. So she is a hardcore Buffalo Bills fan, and I am a Buffalo Bills massive fan, season ticket holder. So, we got that as well. So, Christine, you know what I'm saying.
And we know Christine's story. We've had her on and on to all the great people at NYGO. Shout out, and a huge shout out to your board. But Paul, how did you get into this industry? Did the industry choose you, or did you choose the industry?
It was just weird timing. At the time, I was looking at a few different things, and I got approached by a recruiter about this geothermal company. I was also looking at going pro as a poker player at the time as well, funny enough. And I decided not to do that, a little bit of risk associated with that. And so I ended up going to work for Stan Reitzma at GeoSource as Stan's director of advocacy and sales. And I was in there when developers were looking at me like I had two heads. Just like, what's this geothermal thing? So I was one of those people in the trenches. I was with Stan and I always screw this up. And if Stan, you're watching, I apologize. It was 7 or 8 years I was with Stan. And it was a match made in heaven. He not only was he my boss, but he was also one of my best friends, and he was amazing to work for. I can proudly say we made a difference. I'm lucky at the time Stan was also president of the OGA, so it gave us flexibility to be able to do things. I did a lot of government relations work for the industry at the time. I come from a political family, so it's kind of my world, something I know real well. Was very involved in Green On and getting that program going, advocating for that, working with multiple ministries and ministers. So it was an unbelievable experience. I can proudly say I was involved in some of the largest geothermal projects in Canadian history. I learned more than I ever possibly could have learned. And when people ask me about geothermal and I'm able to talk about geology and depths of holes and people look at me, it's like, how do you know that? And it's like, well, I worked for the largest geothermal driller in North America for several years. So believe it or not, I did learn a lot from Stan, and to this day, we have a fantastic relationship, and I have the utmost respect for him. And he's the guy that opened the door for me, and I can't thank him enough for that.
Fantastic company, and Stan and George and Kate and the entire team. They drilled one Java. So regardless of how we want to look at any pieces of that, they were there and they executed on one of our biggest projects that all eyes were on. So,
oh yeah, Stan is, from a technical perspective, George and Peter, they're unbelievable. They got a great team, and I can't say enough good things about them.
Well, cool. We're absolutely showing how small the drilling industry is, regardless if it's toonies and loonies or dollars and quarters. So.
It is, and I'm lucky that I've gotten to know a lot of the drillers. I'm more in Canada, obviously, but I've met some of the boys down in the U.S. But up here, it's a big family, and one of the things that I've been really focused on with the OGA is kind of breaking down borders. Right, it's been a big part of what I've been doing. We've had some changes at the OGA recently where we used to have a partnership with another organization, and we formally ended that recently. And in turn, we've been doing a lot of different partnerships, MOUs, that type of thing. And the way I'm looking at it, whether it's with other associations, other groups, whatever it is, it's not a competition, right? We're all like, sure, business is competitive. I get that. But at the end of the day, geothermal is geothermal, and we should be working together to help the industry break down borders. Let's educate. Let's help each other get members. It isn't about who's better or worse, right? It's about working together. I don't give a shit about borders. I really don't. We should be working together. And I think for the most part, everybody agrees with me. There's not an association that I've spoken to that said, "Oh no, Paul, that's a bad idea." Haven't met that person yet. I look forward to that day because that'll be a fun conversation. But everybody is the same, right? It's if you have something that's non-binding, that's saying let's work together and help each other, why wouldn't you do it? It's a no-brainer, right?
Well, we're watching the jet stream not care about what side of the border it's on, and we're watching weather in May be warmer than we've ever seen before, and we're seeing extreme storms and tornadoes and different floodings. And you talk about Buffalo, and we never thought we would have seen in the 21st century people freeze to death in their cars due to a snowstorm. So this whole idea of clean, equitable heating and cooling that is getting rid of the carbon. And I would love to jump into a little bit about embodied carbon because I don't think our industry gets it. But the idea that the more greenhouse gases we put into the atmosphere, our atmosphere can only take so much out. And so us reducing and us what the atmosphere can release and what we can sequestrate is how we get to net zero. And that's also how we get weather to calm down.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously one thing that's always mattered to me a lot is kind of the climate file and the reduction of carbon. I have a daughter, right? And I want to make sure that I leave a better place for her when I'm not here. And I'm just one person. I can proudly say that every morning when I wake up, I know I've taken, give or take, about 150,000 tons of GHGs out of the atmosphere based on the work I've done. I understand the climate file really well. I try not to have this conversation because this is a very controversial conversation, right? At the end of the day, you have the people that don't understand it, or you have the people that do understand it that don't want to understand it. You have the deniers, you have all of that. So it's almost like politics, right? It's a difficult conversation to have, but when you really look at it, at the end of the day, if we don't change things, it's not good what's going to happen. And everybody will be impacted. Everybody already is impacted. So
it's tough. Everybody wants to go, oh no, Brock's going to talk about climate change or extreme weather. Here's the deal. A giant chunk of our industry is damn proud to work outside every day, to get to discover the unknown, to get to excavate, to get to use their hands. You can go work at one of those warehouses that sends the boxes with the smiles on it and be climate controlled 8 to 5, Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
But the men and women and individuals in this industry working outside, you're seeing them have to end their work week early or their work day early, or we're seeing projects get delayed by 6 weeks due to standing water and whatnot. So regardless if we want to talk about this from a scientific standpoint or not, it is impacting our families' livelihoods when you look at the work that we can get done and be successful with.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. North of the border, a little bit different. And I joke about this. I shouldn't, though, but we're the benefactors of climate change because it's not as cold up here as it always is. So, but it's also weird when you're kind of used to a winter that starts end of October and ends kind of late April, early May. And now, it's March and you're able to open your cottage earlier or you're swimming in April kind of thing. Yeah, is it better for us? Yeah, but it's not better for the world.
For how long?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
How long do the moment the black flies, we don't get to kill as many off because of the harsh winter or some of these other pieces, right?
Hey, if every black fly and mosquito on Earth is killed, I'm okay with that, buddy. I have zero issue with that. Trust me, black flies friggin' suck, and we got them right now. So I'm actually at my cottage right now. So you picked the wrong subject to touch because I effing hate black flies, buddy.
See, but we got it back to why we need a balanced climate, and why we live up in I live in the Mitten State of Michigan, and you live where you live is because we have 4 seasons. And damn it, we better have snow on Christmas.
I think there's only been one Christmas where there wasn't snow, and that was an anomaly for us. It was just one of those weird years. But yes, without snow on Christmas for us, that would be very, very bizarre, wholeheartedly. The embodied carbon piece is a real interesting one. You mentioned that earlier. If you want to go there, I'm happy to go there. Some people would suggest that I actually know a thing or two about embodied carbon, which
educate us.
I don't like to pretend that I'm actually smart. So embodied carbon is basically for anybody that's listening but doesn't know really what it is. Embodied carbon is the carbon that goes into the making of a product. So, if you use a heat pump as an example, right? So a heat pump, when you have it, you're using carbon to make that. You're using carbon to get it to the place that it's at. Is basically the carbon that is used in the process of building something. So when you look at what I would call true embodied carbon, and you're building a building, you can't build a building more than 1 or 2 stories and call it zero carbon and factor in embodied carbon. It's kind of the newest, not the newest thing, but it's the one thing that is being looked at more seriously now because it represents a lot of that carbon number. When you talk about operational carbon, that's what geothermal does. That's what we address. But embodied is the tough one. And if you look at the HVAC industry as a whole, we haven't addressed it yet. There's only one manufacturer that's actually addressing it in terms of environmental declarations that are saying how much carbon goes into the process. I'm in active dialogue with a few people about this because as an industry, we have to address it at some point, but it's expensive and it's difficult, and it's like anything else. People don't want to do difficult things until they have to. With that being said, policies are changing, and some of the leading municipalities out there, and the two obviously being California and Toronto, like I know with the next version of the Toronto Green Standard, which we can get into what that is after, there is their next version, there's going to be a metric for embodied carbon. And we know that California is doing it, and we know that Vancouver is looking at it, and we know
we have New York, local law 97. Yeah. And to put it more simple, everybody out there, the third largest greenhouse gas emitting country in the world isn't a country, it's an industry, and it's the cement processing industry. And so I know everybody out there that cusses at low carbon type 1L cement, and that we're having all these issues because we realize that we can't bake it and we can't put in all of those carbons. So now we're having anywhere from 4% up to active 14% of limestone that's in it that's not baked, so that we can lower this embodied carbon. But the goal is for us in embodied carbon, and Canada's much better at it than the United States. We can't continue to just tear things down and build new. We need to take what's already had invested carbon as maybe where we should go with this terminology of this infrastructure here in the States, and figure out how we retrofit it to have a better building envelope, to have ground source geothermal, to have as much possibilities of having renewable energy, electric power generation to do it. Because 30 to 40% of heating and cooling is what our biggest drag on the electric grid is, which means there's 60% back out there, like Paul's getting into, that is really kicking our planet's butt.
Yeah, and you touched a few areas there. So the concrete industry, that's a difficult one. So I'm on the peripheral of that. I know what's going on. I know that the concrete manufacturers, whether that's ready mix or whatever, they're looking at ways to do this. Are you doing it at factory? Are you putting additives in? And so they're figuring that out. I know that down in the U.S., one of the groups down there, they're doing a really good job of it. I'm going to give a shout out. I don't know if he watches, but a guy by the name of Mike Wymet, who's with the North American Ready Mix Association. And they're light years ahead of others, where they actually do your environmental declarations for their members, and they've really gone above and beyond. And Mikey and I go way back, and so I had a conversation with him a couple of months ago, and he was telling me that, and I'm really, really proud of him. When you look at embodied carbon, It's really where the focus right now is on new construction, because that's where you can do a lot more. Once you get into retrofit, that's a different can of worms that I don't want to touch right now. Because if you get into the embodied carbon in a brick in a building that was built 90 years ago, you're just dealing with some real complicated stuff. So
other than we don't have to rebuild it, right?
Well,
I'm not
correct.
putting more greenhouse gases in the air.
You're
I
right.
can figure out how to.
But if you're taking
preserve
it down, if you're taking it down, what's happening with that? What is the differential between the new building and that? How are you there? There's a lot of it.
We went pretty deep, didn't we?
It's a pretty complicated one, dude.
And we can bring that right back to the drilling industry and the geothermal industry on, we always need to be moving forward. We always need to be understanding what's the next step. And back to the Ontario Geothermal Conference, you're already thinking about, what could make a 26 conference, greater. And, here at the Driller, or when I put on my Geothermal Drillers Association's hat, I'm always thinking about what's next, because
what's next?
I have a 6 and an 8-year-old, and I want to get younger individuals into these conferences. I want to get them excited. I want them here, because at 2050, for our 2050 goals, I'll be 70.
Yeah, I don't even know if I'll make it that long. I do. I do have a little bit of fun along the way, so I don't know if I'm going to make it that, but you never know. But yeah, I agree with you. The youth is our future. It was fun actually at my conference. I have an account manager, Caitlin, who works with me, and I've gotten her involved in everything. And she was at the conference. She was by my side. She was getting to know everybody. And Jack Deanna, and we all know Jack. Jack took a liking to Caitlin, and he's been talking to her ever since. And he's like, Paul, you need to keep her involved. She is exactly what this industry needs. Somebody that's young, full of energy, who's going to get things done. And I agree. I want to be able to put our industry in a position where those of us that are right now, we're in a position to be able to do stuff. Some might even still consider us young, even though I don't consider myself young. And I'm guessing, Brock, you don't consider yourself that young. I act like I'm young. That doesn't mean I am young. But I want to be able to set up the industry for success when we're not around, or we aren't able to be involved anymore. It's really, really important to me. We are starting to make changes to our board to get more different voices in there. And it's something that I'm always thinking about.
So we should get this wrapped up. We have went from exciting conference to us knowing many of the same great people. What's next? What's next for the rest of the year for you, Paul?
Oh my God. Well, from a geothermal perspective, let's just say there's a lot of moving pieces right now, and whether that's different agreements with different associations, whether that's getting our new membership going, which we announced at the conference. We're going to be putting something up publicly. I know we're going to at least double our membership probably in the first 3 months, but we might even do a triple, just because the costs have come down so dramatically. So it's going to be about growth. One of the other things that I do with the board is I handle a lot of the government relations work. So we currently have incentive programs that need a little bit of work. There's going to be more coming.
How's the adoption in Canada right now for geothermal heat pumps?
Look at you asking the difficult question today. There's a positive and a negative. So if you look at the condo market, we'll call it multi-residential market, it's significant. We're probably at 10% market penetration, which is a big number. But I would say when a developer that is building a condo or a multi-residential building, we're probably at the point of 50% of them are at least looking at geothermal as an option, versus 15 years ago, they didn't even know what it was. So there's a bunch of us that should be proud of what we've done to get the market to where it is today. So I would say it's mainstream. That's primarily because there are geothermal utilities out there. So in turn, it allows the developer to offset that cost, right? And it's amortized over a long period of time and passed over to the condo board. It makes total sense. In the low rise, we'll call it in the single family home or subdivision level, we're not where we want to be. We're getting there. The largest privately held home builder in North America, Mattamy Homes, is doing it regularly. Other home builders, and there's also guys like Sean Mason Homes, who's doing some great things. Other home builders are looking at their leadership and at least trying to learn about it, but figuring out that economic model is very difficult for home builders, but we're working really hard. From the single family home perspective, we're not where we want to be. And as we all know, the cost of natural gas is cheap. Therefore, your delta, when you're looking at the payback on your investment, it's just not there right now. It's very difficult. But that's where I and the OGA work with government to try and come up with something to make them understand the benefits of electrification and geothermal, but also to make them understand that you shouldn't be subsidizing natural gas, or if you're going to keep doing that, at least subsidize us as well. Give us the same, don't friggin' penalize us for having a good technology.
Do you have a date for next year's conference?
We're trying to keep it in and around the same time. So where we're going with it is normally the Wednesday and or Thursday after the May long weekend in Ontario. So that normally falls in and around May 24th. We do not have anything booked yet. We haven't even done our final budget for this year. So that's, but it'll be in and around the same time. Where will it be? Don't know yet. Last year, Hamilton, this year, Toronto. We'll probably keep it somewhere in that greater Toronto area. But, you never know. We'll see in the very near future.
Well, amazing. Any last thoughts for the audience?
No. You know what? Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I hope I behaved myself well enough. And like I said, it's my first podcast. So I guess, Brock, you will criticize me after and let me know what I said that I shouldn't have said. But for the most part, thank you. Guys, just if there's anything I can do to help your viewers, subscribers, whatever the term is. I'm one of those guys up in Canada. I'm very connected in the industry. I know a few people. I welcome conversations. I love talking to people from the industry. I love talking to my American friends. It's you guys some of you are badass like I am. You're not quite Canadian badass, but you're a close second. So I always welcome conversations, and you guys will probably see me at some of the conferences down in the US next year.
Excellent. Thanks, Paul.
Okay. Thank you, Brock. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to next time.
Thanks, Paul. That was excellent. Thank you for joining us for episode 149. Next week's a big episode. And yes, Robert Reynolds, your email has not gone unnoticed. We'll be talking about it next week. I want to cheers all the dads out there that are with us in spirit, with us looking down. I would not be the professional I am today without my father, Charles Yordy, Chuck. He was a proud water well driller all the way up until the day he died. It's a great quote out there. It says it's from unknown. No, it's from a dad who had a great dad. Dads are the most ordinary men turned by loved ones into heroes, adventurers, storytellers, and singer of song. Heroes don't live forever, everybody. And I think about that from my grandfather and my father and all of the great mentors out there, men, women, individual. And as I wear my Father's Day gift from my children with the iconic dad of the 21st century, Bandit Healer. If you don't know Bluey, go check it out. It is a love song to parenting. They're 7 minutes long. Soren So, a great friend of mine in Adelaide, Australia, from way of Denmark. Great dad. He made a comment at the New York Geo. I'm going to try to use my best Crocodile Dundee accent. And I said, no, all we want to hear is Bandit Healer from Australia these days. It's because he's a great dad. And he takes time to bestow the lessons and hear what's going on. And man, if you've watched the episodes, I don't know how he finds the time. But yet again, it's 7 minutes of his day versus the rest of the day. Who knows from taking that phone call and going, what do you mean the pipe's stuck in the hole? There's plenty of other dramatics that happen. We have to continue to fight the good fight with our senators on this big bill. And yes, next week for 150, we're going to jump into it because there's been some challenges out there. But I need you to think about what's happening at the Colorado River Basin right now, where the snowmelt wasn't there. And they've just talked about the Antarctic having more ice production. Why? Because that rain and snow shifted north. Doesn't mean it's going to stay there. Doesn't mean we're out of this. Lake Mead is 3 times the size of all the water that is to be yield yearly outside of the Colorado River Basin. That 15 million acre feet. New Mexico needs water. Texas needs water. And those allotments come from that Colorado River Basin. There's so much happening. And as I wear my Rad Dad shirt and I think about the United States and Canada and Mexico and North America, Latin America, Europe, Asia, around the world, we're seeing impacts of climate change to our water life cycle. And that's the importance of groundwater, as we have people out there right now going, I don't know how to define what an aquifer is. Groundwater and wells tells us. Our scientists tell us. Dr. Reed Maxwell with the aquifer mapping at Princeton has explained it to us. It's a big deal right now. And it's something that we have to think about. And as a dad of a 7 and 9-year-old, 2050, I'm going to be 70. They're going to be right in the prime of their leadership. And we cannot roll over right now and see where our environment is, that it's just fixing itself or whatever the BS is that's out there. We're drillers. We work with Mother Nature to extract resources and to harness the power and energy of Mother Earth and to protect groundwater, because that is life. We do that. We have the responsibility to continue to drive that. Happy Father's Day, everyone. Go out, be safe, be smart. Thanks.